It all started at the DMV on Broadway in Sacramento. You know the one, that ugly beige building that always looks like it's sweating under the valley sun, surrounded by a parking lot that's either half empty or completely full, never anything in between. I was there to get my license renewed. Not exactly the stuff of nightmares, right? Usually it's just boredom and fluorescent lights. But this time was different. I wasn't alone. My girlfriend Chloe had come with me. She said she wanted to moral support me, but I think she was just bored and didn't want to sit in her apartment. Chloe was, well, she was the kind of woman you notice. Not in a loud way, but in a way that made your eyes stick to her for a second too long. She had this long dark hair that fell over her shoulders like spilled ink, and she was wearing a simple white tank top and these faded jeans that hugged her hips in a way that made it hard to think about anything else. I remember watching the way the denim stretched across her thighs as she slid into the passenger seat of my car that morning, the subtle shift of fabric, and I had to force myself to look back at the road. We walked into that DMV and the smell hit us first: stale coffee, industrial cleaner, and the faint metallic tang of human frustration. The air conditioning was fighting a losing battle against the late August heat, humming weakly from vents crusted with dust. "God, it's depressing in here," Chloe whispered, her hand finding the small of my back. Her fingers were cool. I could feel the light pressure through my t-shirt, a small, intimate point of contact that for some reason felt incredibly loud in that sterile, crowded room. I glanced at her. She was looking around, her lips, always glossed, always looking slightly wet, parted just a little. The fluorescent lights overhead caught the high curve of her cheekbones, casting soft shadows underneath. I had a sudden, inappropriate urge to kiss her right there, to taste that gloss, to feel her surprise. I shook it off. Wrong place, wrong time. Always. I took a number. B114. The electronic board showed they were serving B99. A solid 45-minute wait minimum. We found two connected plastic chairs near the back, next to a poster about the dangers of driving under the influence that featured a horrifically mangled car. "Thrilling," Chloe said, her knee brushing against mine as she sat down. She slipped off her sandals, strappy little things, and tucked one foot up under her leg. I stared for a second too long at her bare foot, the delicate bones of her ankle, the pale pink polish on her toes. The strap of her sandal had left a faint red mark on her instep. I imagined pressing my thumb there, gently, to soothe it. The thought was so vivid and out of place it felt like a spike of static in my brain. That's when I first noticed the clerk. Her booth was all the way at the end, station 12. Most of the other clerks looked tired, bored, vaguely annoyed, the standard DMV uniform of expression. This woman was different. She was maybe in her late 40s, with hair pulled back into a severe, tight bun that stretched the skin around her temples. She wore no makeup. But it was her smile that got me. She was helping an elderly man, and she was smiling at him. It was a wide, technically perfect smile. But her eyes, they were completely dead, flat. Like two chips of gray slate. They didn't crinkle at the corners. They didn't change at all. It was just this mask of pleasantness stretched over absolute nothingness. It was the most unsettling thing I'd seen in a long time. I nudged Chloe. "Check out the robot at station 12. Chloe followed my gaze. The clerk was handing the old man his paperwork, her head turned, just slightly, and those slate-gray eyes swept across the waiting area. They passed over us. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck, a sensation like being scanned by something that didn't understand what it was looking at. "Creepy," Chloe murmured, shifting in her seat. The movement made her tank top ride up just a fraction, exposing a sliver of smooth, tan skin above her waistband. My eyes dropped to it. The horror of that clerk's smile and the sudden hot pull of desire for Chloe got all tangled up inside me, a confusing, uncomfortable knot. I looked away, feeling guilty for no reason I could name. Our number wasn't called for another hour. The place was a special kind of purgatory. Crying babies, the incessant drone of the number system, the sticky feel of the chair beneath me. The clerk at station 12 never stopped smiling. She processed a young couple, a nervous teenager, a woman with a stack of paperwork a mile high. Always the same procedure. Always the same hollow, perfect smile. Finally, B114. Station 12. Of course it was her. Chloe gave my hand a quick squeeze. "Good luck. Don't let her steal your soul." I walked over, the linoleum floor squeaking under my sneakers. The closer I got, the more wrong she felt. The air around her booth was colder, there was no personal item, no family photo, no cute mug, not even a plant. Just a computer, a camera on a stand, and her. "Please have a seat," she said. Her voice was pleasant, neutral, but utterly devoid of inflection. It sounded like a very good text-to-speech program. I sat down in the hard plastic chair opposite her. She took my old license and my paperwork. Her fingers were long and pale, the nails cut short and brutally straight. "License renewal," she stated, not asking. She began typing. The click-clack of the keys was abnormally loud, each tap precise and separate. I tried not to look at her directly, instead focusing on the camera behind her. It looked old, a big, boxy thing with a large lens. "Look here, please," she said. I hadn't even seen her stand up. She was suddenly behind the camera, her face hidden behind it. The light on top blinked red. I forced a smile, the kind you make for ID photos. I held it. She didn't take the picture. The red light stayed on. 0.5 seconds. 0.10. I could feel my smile becoming a grimace. I started. The flash blinded me. A sharp, chemical pop that left purple blotches dancing in my vision. "Thank you," her voice came from the darkness. I blinked, clearing my sight. She was already back at her computer, typing, the printer next to her word, and spat out a sheet of paper. Then it began printing my new license. She picked it up, examined it, and handed it to me with that same terrifying smile. "Here you are, have a pleasant day." I took it without looking, mumbled a thanks, and got out of there as fast as I could. My heart was beating a little too fast. It was just a weird interaction with a weird civil servant. I told myself that's all. Chloe was waiting by the door. "Get it?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, finally looking down at the new license in my hand. The photo was off. My face was pale, my eyes wide, almost startled. The flash had washed me out, making me look gaunt. There were lines on my forehead I didn't remember having. I looked tired. Older. I shrugged it off. Don't they always take bad pictures at the DMV? "Let's get out of this dump," I said, pocketing the license. We drove back to my place with the windows down, the hot Sacramento air whipping through the car. Chloe had her arm out the window, her hand riding the wind. I kept glancing over at her. The sun caught the fine hairs on her forearm, turning them to gold. I could see the gentle curve of her breast pressed against the side of her seatbelt. The weirdness at the DMV started to fade, replaced by the simple, pressing want of her. The two feelings were existing side by side now, the unease and the arousal, and I didn't know what to do with either. That night we ordered pizza and watched a movie. During a quiet scene, I pulled out my wallet and showed her the license. "Look at this atrocity." She took it, squinting in the dim light of the TV. She was curled up next to me on the couch, barefoot, her toes brushing against my legs. She frowned. "Jesus, Mark, you look like you've seen a ghost, and what's with all the wrinkles?" She traced a finger over the laminated surface. "You didn't have that line there this morning." She poked my forehead, right between my eyes. "Gee, thanks." "No, I'm serious," she said, her playfulness fading. She held the license closer to her face. It's like they aged you 5 years. That's messed up." A cold trickle of something that felt a lot like fear went down my spine. I took the license back. In the better light of my apartment, it was even more obvious. The face in the picture was mine, unquestionably. But it was a version of me that had lived a harder life. The eyes were baggy, there was a deep groove running from my nose to the corners of my mouth, like a parenthesis of worry I'd never earned. My hairline even looked a little further back. "It's a bad picture," I insisted, more to myself than to her. "Bad lighting." I was squinting. Chloe didn't look convinced. She snuggled closer to me, resting her head on my shoulder. I could smell her shampoo, something with coconut. Her hair tickled my neck. I wrapped my arm around her, my hand resting on the dip of her waist. I could feel the warmth of her skin through her thin shirt. My thumbs started moving, a slow, absent-minded circle against her hip bone. The fear and the desire were mixing again, a confusing cocktail. I was freaked out by the license, but the solid, warm reality of Chloe right next to me was a powerful antidote. I turned my head and buried my face in her hair, inhaling deeply. The next few days were normal. I went to work. I hung out with Chloe. I tried to forget the DMV and the clerk with the dead eyes. But small things started to happen. I'd be walking down the street in Midtown and get the sudden, overwhelming feeling I was being watched. I'd spin around, and there'd be no one there. Just normal people going about their day. Once I was grabbing a coffee from a place on J Street that I was waiting for my order, scrolling through my phone when I looked up and saw her. The clerk. She was standing across the street, just standing. Still wearing her DMV vest. She wasn't looking at anything in particular, she was just facing my direction, that same empty, pleasant smile on her face that a bus passed between us, and when it was gone, she was too. My blood ran cold that I abandoned my coffee and practically ran back to my office. That I told Chloe about it that night over dinner at a noisy pub near my place. Maybe it was just someone who looked like her, she said, squeezing a lime into her beer. She was wearing a black dress, something simple and sleeveless, and the muscles in her forearm flexed with emotion that I found myself staring at the elegant line from her elbow to her wrist, the way her delicate silver bracelet lay against her skin. The memory of the clerk's stark, empty face was so at odds with the vibrant, living woman in front of me. It was her, I said, my voice tighter than I intended. I'm telling you, Chloe, that it was her, and she was smiling. Okay, she said, reaching across the table to put her hand over mine. Her touch was calming. It's weird that it's really weird, but it was probably just a coincidence. She has a life outside the DMV, right? As horrifying as that thought is. I wanted to believe her that I really did. The dreams started that week, vivid, suffocating dreams that I'd be back in the DMV, but it was empty and stretched into a vast, endless hall of identical beige booths that I'd be walking lost, and I'd hear the precise click-clack of keyboard keys echoing. That I'd turn a corner, and she'd be there at Station 12, always Station 12, her smile a fixed gash in her face. That she'd be holding my license, and in the dream the photo would be moving. I'd watch myself in the little rectangle, aging rapidly, my skin wrinkling, my hair turning gray and falling out, my eyes sinking into a skull that was becoming more prominent by the second. That I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart hammering against my ribs. Chloe would stir beside me, mumbling in her sleep. Sometimes, in the hazy terror of those moments, my fear would twist into something else. I'd look at her sleeping form, the sheet tangled around her legs, the curve of her shoulder exposed in the moonlight from the window. The sheer life in her, the warmth and scent of her, felt like the only real thing in the world. That I'd want to wake her up, to lose myself in her, to use the physical, sweating, gassing reality of sex to drive out the cold, silent horror of the dream. But I never did that. I'd just lie there, trembling, until dawn broke. The final straw was the phone. That I was at home watching TV. When my phone buzzed on the coffee table. That a text from an unknown number. That it was a picture message. The image loaded slowly, line by line. That it was a photo of me, taken from outside my own living room window. That I was sitting on the couch, in the exact spot I was in right now, staring at the TV. The angle was slightly distorted, like it was taken through a pane of glass. The timestamp on the photo was from 5 minutes ago. My breath caught in my throat. That I dropped the phone like it was a live spider and lunged for the window, yanking the blinds shut. My hands were shaking. That I peered through the slats, scanning the dark street outside. Nothing. No movement. No figure standing on the sidewalk. That I picked my phone back up with trembling fingers. The number was gone. The message history showed nothing. That it was like it had never been there. That's when the full-blown paranoia set in. I started checking my locks 3-4 times before bed. That I drew all the blinds. Every creak of the old apartment building made me jump. That I was constantly looking over my shoulder, my nerves stretched wire-tight. That I needed to go back. That I needed to see her again, to confront this thing, to prove to myself that it was just a person, a strange, unsettling person, but a person nonetheless. That I had to go back to the DMV. Chloe thought I was losing it. Mark, that's insane. Why would you go back there? Just forget about it. We were in her kitchen. She was washing dishes, her back to me. She was wearing a thin, worn-out t-shirt and a pair of tiny shorts. That I watched the muscles in her calves flex as she shifted her weight, the way the shorts hugged the perfect, round curve of her backside. The desire to just walk over, wrap my arms around her waist, and bury my face in her neck was so strong it was a physical ache. That I wanted to lose this feeling in the smell of her skin, the taste of her mouth. But the other feeling, the cold, creeping dread, was stronger. I can't forget about it, I said, my voice rough. The text, Chloe. Someone was outside my window. She turned around, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her face was worried. It was probably a prank that a wrong number that got deleted that you're working yourself up over nothing. It's not nothing. I snapped, louder than I meant to. She flinched and immediately I felt like shit. I'm sorry that I have to know. She looked at me for a long moment, her dark eyes searching mine. She saw the fear there. I know she did. She sighed. Okay. Okay, if you have to, but I'm coming with you. The DMV on Broadway was just as I remembered it. The smell, the hopeless light, the low murmur of resigned misery. It was a Tuesday afternoon, less busy than before. My eyes went straight to station 12. It was empty. The chair was pushed in. The computer screen was dark. A weird mix of relief and disappointment washed over me. Maybe she was gone. Maybe she'd quit. Maybe it was over. See? Chloe said softly, her hand on my arm. She's not even here. Let's go. I was about to agree when a different clerk, a tired-looking man with a mustache, called out, "Can I help? Who's next?" It was an impulse that I don't know why I did it. I walked up to his station, Chloe trailing behind me. "I was here a couple weeks ago," I said, my mouth dry. "The woman who worked at station 12. I think I left something here. Do you know her name? Or when she works?" The clerk looked at me with flat boredom. "Station 12's been vacant for 6 months, he droned. "Budget cuts. Nobody's worked that station since old Brenda retired." The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "That's not possible. She was there. She helped me. She took my picture." The clerk just shrugged, already losing interest. "Don't know what to tell you, pal. It's been empty. Maybe you got the station number wrong." He turned to his computer, dismissing me. I felt Chloe's fingers tighten on my bicep. "Mark, let's go, now." I let her lead me out of there. The bright sunlight,